Awesome. Hey guys, pleasure to be here. My name is Nicolas, founder of the Hub DAO. And today I will talk to you about standards and democratization for Metaverse builders, right? In the last 2 or 3 years, the topic of the Metaverse has obviously been, let's say, around a bit, right? The term has been widely abused and used, I would say, in both directions, positive and negative. And I think generally there's obviously a huge misconception around the Metaverse in general out there. You know, now when you talk to people, 50% will tell you, oh, the Metaverse, isn't it dead? What is the Metaverse, right? And I think whether we call it Metaverse, internet, spatial computing, whatever we want to phrase it, right? At the end, we all know that the internet is heading to a more immersive and 3D environment. And here, in order to achieve mass adoption, we need to collaborate, we need to work together, and above all, we need data infrastructure standards, right? And that is what I'm going to talk to you about today, how actually these standards can be facilitated, how the Metaverse adoption, especially for the builders as a first step, can come to life. In general, just to recap, right, the Metaverse still right now is a huge ecosystem in terms of opportunities, right? You have the creator economy, you have gaming and Web3, which at the moment, of course, mark the key verticals around the Metaverse economy, but obviously long-term it goes beyond, right? I will not spend too much time on this slide because we all know it's a huge opportunity, but sometimes it's important to recap, right? What is the status quo? However, at the moment, the Metaverse itself lags behind its true potential, right? We all know that most of the Web3 Metaverse worlds are not really scaling. There's a lot of talk about the users. There's over 160 plus different virtual worlds. There is over 500 million users actually across worlds, right? So at the same time, while we have all these different worlds, there's also still a lot of users. And I'm not talking just about Web3 worlds, obviously, right? There it's a bit less. I'm talking about generally the concept of virtual environments and spaces in the world and in the internet. So there is growing traction, right? There is still growing demand. There's, especially amongst younger generations, a lot of traction and a lot of time actually spent in these more immersive virtual environments, but they are data silos, right? So as you have your identities in one platform, you have your other identity in another, you're not able to move seamlessly from these different ecosystems like you would move from website A to website B, right? So that's a huge issue, and that is because of the lack of interoperability standards. And there's tremendous amounts of lands out there, which we all know as being the Metaverse infrastructure, right? The domains of the Metaverse. However, each of these land ecosystems is super fragmented, right? And as a builder, it's very hard. Even as a company, where I would say some of the companies, even big brands, can be seen as builders, right? We get a lot of requests from companies in traditional finance, IP, in esports, traditional sports, gaming, right? And they often don't know where should they go, right? And I mean, as an individual builder, as a freelancer, as a creator, you also don't know where should I actually start. Should I go to Fortnite or Roblox? Should I go to Decentraland or Sandbox? Or should I build my own world in my own instance, right? And this is a huge issue, right? So there's no universal standard for interoperability yet, especially when it comes to also connecting the Web 2 and Web 3 worlds. In general, what we want to envision and with the hub, right, what our vision really is and how we want to help builders is actually setting these standards, right? There's a lot of data standards out there, there's a lot of ecosystems out there, but there's not really an aggregation thereof, right? And this is really what our mission is, and we really want to power the applications that scale the user adoption. How this looks like is that, of course, eventually you have the fuel, right, which is the data which comes from the blockchain, the metadata, the AI, and obviously extracting from the users that consume, create, and scale the businesses in these ecosystems. And you have the platforms on top, right? And the key verticals that users focus on is invest, build, and experience, right? So do you purchase something? Do you build something? Or do you just have fun, right? So in order for users to go through this flow, this user journey, they need to have these standards in place. And here, for instance, tools that we from our side have already launched is, on the one hand, the Metaverse Explorer, which can help you all basically to scale, to find the best places in these worlds to position yourself and to just also make purchases, right? So when you want to know where should I go in these different worlds, you can use tools like the Explorer, where you can navigate through these different ecosystems, right? On top of that, there's also different builder suites, right, that we are working on, and we'll dive in a second on that, basically concretely, where actually you will be able to navigate from a builder's perspective through these different ecosystems and don't limit yourself anymore to just building in one of them, right, and then having a siloed ecosystem. In terms of traction, just to show you that the metaverse still has traction, these are some of, for instance, the recent user metrics that we have, right? There is still traction around the metaverse. I just want to mention it because I think it's important to show, right, that there is not, it's not a dead space. It's actually something that is still moving, that is still scaling, if you focus on the right verticals. So basically, a quick background about ourselves, right? And we are a diverse team from all over the world. We have been early contributors to a lot of the core protocols in the space. Also in the Web 2 world, we have quite a good presence. And our mission is really to scale the standards in the user adoption. We have a strong team of advisors, right? So with these advisors, we do different mentorship programs, educational programs, and other initiatives, basically, which we can help you and other people with that come from universities to actually enter the space, right, and navigate into the right directions. We have strong partners, so anyone looking to build in the metaverse and find the right partners can also reach out to us, and we can help and connect you with them, of course. And now I want to take the time to dive a bit deeper into actually how builders can, let's say, facilitate these standards and can leverage metaverse building for themselves, for others, for businesses and users. And for that, I have a little surprise prepared. Please give it up for my co-founder, Camilo, who is responsible also for the tech. He doesn't like to be called a tech lead, right? So I'm going to skip that, but yeah, he's the expert to tell you a bit more about these steps.
Thank you, Nico. Guys, I actually want to talk about interoperability. So, as you know, bringing standards to the play is very, very important right now. But a lot of people talk about interoperability as if it would be like a regular topic, right? Like, yeah, interoperability. And now in the metaverse space, when you talk to different companies, they're all saying it, like interoperability, interoperability. So we really wanted to approach this topic. I mean, as Nicolas mentioned, we have these different verticals on how we bring these standards to the metaverse. And one of the main pillars is the building component. Now, in the metaverse space, I don't know if any of you have built anything in the metaverse. I don't know. You, Sergey? You too? Okay, good. So, as you can see, not so many people. Oh shit! Not so many people. Not so many people build in these virtual worlds, right? And if we envision the metaverse as the future of the internet, then we will have everybody, every one of us, building immersive experiences in one way or the other. Now, if you want to do and if you want to build an immersive experience as of now, you need to really know how to code, you need to know how to build these 3D models, and we need to change that. So for that, we built an interoperable metaverse builder. Now, the first iteration of this was with Decentraland. We're early contributors to the protocol, and we really think that it's one of the best, so to say, virtual worlds out there because it's very, very composable. It allows you to interact with its SDK in a very simple way, and we took it, so to say, as the MVP for our big idea, which is really making these interoperable building editors. Now, the way it works is very simple. So you essentially have an editor where you can actually put entities into it. You put the entities, it could be a circle, it could be a 3D model or an asset that you have from your library, place it into the scene, rotate it, move it around. I mean, as if, I don't know, you probably played Sims in the past. That's what you can do then with the Decentraland editor. Now, it might sound a little bit trivial, but 1.5 years ago when we actually created this tool, you had to code everything from scratch. So if you wanted to actually place a chair or maybe this plant in your scene, you would need to literally code the coordinates of where that plant is going to be, in which position, and in which angle, which is ridiculous. Now, we really wanted to change that and created this Decentraland editor, and the way it works is you pretty much use the editor, place the things that you want in your scene, and then it gets compiled into code that gets deployed to the Decentraland SDK, and then it gets rendered on the Decentraland client. Now, this process that you're seeing here is, so to say, the flow that we used for the Decentraland SDK, but this flow can actually work for other virtual worlds. Now, as Nicolas was mentioning before, we're getting approached by multiple companies and projects that are either wanting to get into the metaverse or are building their own world. Now, the issue is, when you're creating a metaverse, you really need to create, you choose your engine, okay, Unity, Unreal, and then you need to create an editor so you can actually create those scenes. And everybody needs to do it from scratch. So if you talk to Spatial, to Sandbox, all of them invested millions of dollars and actually a lot of time to actually create these editors. With this over here, you can really use the editor, deploy it, and create your own virtual experiences. Now, the future for it and what we envision this to become, because this was the MVP with Decentraland, is to actually deploy the scenes that we're creating in the universal scene description format. Universal scene description format is a format that has been pushed by NVIDIA and Pixar since many years, trying to bring a standard to the metaverse. So like we all use HTTP nowadays, we will be using, in a way, the universal scene description. The cool thing is, you create, for instance, a scene which is for Decentraland, on the Decentraland SDK on Unity, that has, let's say, some intelligent components as a door that goes, opens and closes, an elevator, all these things that, where you can add logic to the scene. So you pretty much create that code, that deploy it into Unity, and since it's in the universal scene description format, you can then deploy it in Unreal Engine and all the other engines that are coming up in the next couple of years. So it's actually very, very useful. If you add the Web3 component to it, you just save the whole scene with all the logic, and of course the metadata in universal scene description, you save it in an NFT, and then you can actually transpose it to all the different virtual worlds. Now, this is what we're actually doing from the building side. We're also doing it with avatars and are trying to really get on board it, or get as many people on board to the metaverse in the most simple way. Nico's going to give you the final words.
Thank you, bro. So basically, yeah, you heard now a bit about the technology. Of course, if you're a metaverse builder, if you're a creator, then yeah, I encourage you to just go to our website, download our tool, try it out. You can reach out to us here, of course, if you have any questions, right? So we always open, we do different initiatives around education, so you can also sign up to those seminars that we do, right? So it's all about fostering standards and adoption for us. And I think, for us, really, the core vision is that the metaverse is not something that eventually we will still use as a term, right? We've been all over the world talking about what we do, and of course, right now we also see that generally, as I mentioned in the beginning, the metaverse term itself is something that, who knows, right? Like whether it will be around, who knows whether it is positively or negatively connotated, right? It kind of always depends on what market cycle and what hype cycle we are in. However, at the same time, we are all on the same page. I think that the way that the internet works right now will not be how it will be in the future, right? And I think that's why these standards are so important, right? And that's why the best principle is always learning by doing, right? So starting out, trying new things, failing, succeeding, it doesn't matter, right? At the end, we all want to, just create a new and more inclusive environment in the internet. And I think the two key parts, right, that these standards actually enable, associated with let's say, the user adoption, is the tools and the users are able to further decentralize. What I mean by that specifically is that we always have been talking in this space about decentralization. I think actually back in 2018, 19, decentralization was a topic that was more used and more used in the correct terms. I feel like in the last bull cycle, it kind of, got pushed in the back a bit, and it was more about which big brand is coming, which big, IP, sports athlete, musician, right? Like it was more about these topics. And Decentralization is something that we should not forget, right? And decentralization, as we are also operating as a DAO with the hub, is something that we take, you know, to the core. And that's why we also further decentralize and democratize the metaverse, right? And it's funny, as I sometimes say, we also actually need to tokenize the metaverse, right? And only if we achieve the tokenization of the metaverse, where right now a lot of these assets in the virtual worlds that you see, they're not tokens, right? Maybe projects and brands are selling tokens to a lot of Web3 communities, which we should not forget is them selling consumer products, not investment vehicles, right, at the moment. I mean, we all have maybe played around as degens a bit in the hype of the bull market, but at the end, really, the metaverse needs to be tokenized first. It needs to be decentralized, which happens also in part through this tokenization. And for that, you need to have the right tools, right? And how do we achieve it, right? Enabling the tools that then scale the users, because we can only have mass adoption once actually the builders are satisfied, once the builders are able to seamlessly create, not before, right? We always kind of like to jump ahead of ourselves, where we talk about mass adoption, millions of users in this space, before we can actually even have any standards, right, for the builders. It's kind of like if you travel to a different country and you cannot use your charger, right? Like humans generally, I think, have an issue with aligning on standards, right? So I believe and I see it with the metaverse itself, it will be probably quite similar, like with everything in our lives, but still, you know, if you're interested to set standards, if you're interested to actually achieve a more decentralized metaverse, right, then we are here, we are open to collaborate, we are open to educate and mentor, we are open to guide, right, and at the end we just want to build and enjoy, right, and yeah, that's our mission, and we are really excited to share this mission with anyone. And yeah, looking forward to a couple of more amazing days here at ETHCC. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them.
Hey, exciting, yeah, interoperability is super key. I'm pretty interested in building in Vision OS, like the augmented reality coming out with Apple. Can your tools help with that as well?
Yeah, so the Vision OS is supported by Unity. So essentially all the tools that we create are Unity compatible and Unreal compatible. I mean, just making sure we can use all the engines.
Sweet, and did I hear right that you said that you connect people with devs as well to help build?
Yeah,
tools?
definitely. Yeah, of course.
All right, let's talk.
Maybe quickly on the connection side. So, right, what we tend to do is we team up with universities and local ecosystems, right? So we've done it in Germany, we've done it in Colombia, we're doing it currently also in Nigeria, for instance. Soon we'll do it in Singapore, where we collaborate with these local universities. We do initiatives there where we teach the students about, for instance, how they can become a metaverse creator through our tools, right? So if there's any initiative that you have in mind, happy to discuss it, yeah.
And I must to add into that, it's also a very, very new space, right? So in 2021, everybody spent their time, or the ones that were in the metaverse, many of them selling things, right? So we got in 2020 into the space, into the metaverse space, and we realized, okay, there's no documentation for anything. So that's why we kind of created this, and now a lot of people are onboarded through these educational workshops to actually learn how to do these things. Yeah. Thank you. If there are some more questions, Sergey.
Yeah. What about legal? How you see it? When mass adoption will go to when all the young boys will sitting in glasses? How you connect it with legal when they will when in metaverse you can see awful things like bad things? How?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a philosophical question around this from Jamie Berg from Outlier Ventures. Will the metaverse subordinate to nation states, or will nation states subordinate to the open metaverse, right? And yeah, I think in general, my personal take is it will be quite ambivalent, right? I mean, right now, the same logics that happen right now in the more centralized internet, and who knows whether the metaverse and the open metaverse, the Web3 world, will actually at some point be decentralized, because at the moment it is not, right? So we will not know how that will play out. Therefore, from a legal side, my first guess right now, of course I have to say this, I'm not a lawyer, would be that probably it will be actually quite similar like currently, right, in the Web 2 world, where there's bad stuff happening on the internet. Of course, it is always, not always, but it is quite subjective sometimes if it's bad or not, right? Sometimes for a regulator it's bad, for the masses it's not. Sometimes it is just bad, right? So it's always a bit difficult also to evaluate that, of course. But at the end, I think, yeah, in human nature, it's very hard to stop, right, humans from doing something. And the nature of decentralization is that someone can literally do anything, right, and has all the same opportunities, right? And that's a good and a bad thing at the same time. I think we will not be able to stop people from doing bad things. I think that especially, I think that we should not focus on stopping bad things so much, but actually more about doing good things, right? I think generally we should focus our energy on that, so that actually people that come into the space don't even have any relation to the bad thing, right? And yeah, there will always be something there, and maybe here and there regulators need to intervene, but I think if we actually collaborate together and work on the right solutions, then we will be able to be in a good position. And I think the most important, or one of the most important things is actually laws around data, right? Data privacy, data security. And I think on that side, actually, this is something that is not so much related directly to the, let's say, these virtual worlds themselves, but more actually to the data privacy laws and regulations generally of these places, right? And there, I think, for instance, here in the EU, actually, we are more or less on the forefront globally on this, right? If we compare it to other ecosystems, so while we like to bash the bureaucracy of the EU and everything around it, I think actually there is some good things happening there. I also believe that if a platform is fully decentralized, then, for instance, the builders of this platform should not and cannot be held liable for anything bad happening there, right? Because, I mean, they cannot stop that people from doing that. But if a platform is centralized, then I think it is actually also the responsibility of that platform, right? To protect people and to prevent people from doing bad things. So, for instance, a very decentralized, quote-unquote, world like Decentraland, there are different principles that would apply to a more centralized world, currently like the sandbox, right? So there's differences, where the sandbox, for instance, is actually hands-on trying to prevent things like racism, right? Aspects like general discrimination, sexism, aspects like that, right? They are proactively pursuing that and flagging accounts that manage and do these things, right? But in an ecosystem like Decentraland, it's almost impossible. But at the end of the day, we also have a great lawyer. So in case, happy to connect and talk about this with him a bit further. Thank you. But yeah, I think now the time is up. But have a great day, guys. Enjoy the rest of your conference.